To be honest, I don't think I'm coping very well with it. Yeah, I sometimes I cry
Oh no.
because I just feel so lousy about myself. Um, and yeah, sometimes I will like talk to my friends or my sister, and they will just try to tell me, "Oh, it's okay. Like, just do your work. Just do the best that you can, and don't think so much about the results. Just focus on like getting it done. Focus on uh, transferring whatever's in your brain onto the paper. Yeah, and yeah, so I think mostly I just um, try to do it. I guess.
Like for me, I wouldn't say there's really a coping mechanism. It's just more like whenever I have imposter syndrome, I just start to break down. And then for me, that breakdown is really like a period for me to reflect, and it just releases like all the negative emotions within me. So I feel that that's a really good way for me to cope with it, and it does help with not disrupting the rest of my life.
Mm, to cope, I guess at the lowest point when my head was just filled with negative thoughts, I would like write it down and then maybe take a step back, do something else, and then I'll come back and reassess the situation. And most times what I'm thinking about it's like not true. So that helped me overcome like the lowest points.
Okay, I think for me, it's more of acceptance of the whole situation. So I think rather than working against how I feel, I just feel like I think it's more of like just recognizing myself on a personal level that um whatever I feel is valid, but at the same time, looking at the reality, the current situation is that, I have these problems. Because I said that I only feel this way when it's towards the end of each semester, for example, when it gets very busy, very hectic, right? I think it's more of me coming to terms with that. This is how I feel. These feelings are valid, but at the same time, the reality is that, I have to face these issues head on. So I still have to do my assignments, I still have to do my presentation. So I think on a personal basis, I just accept that this is how I feel, but it doesn't really like, restrict me in any way. It doesn't make me feel like, oh, I should stop doing anything. So I think it's more of like acceptance, coming to terms with it. Yeah.
I think the best method that I found is just wait for it to pass. But sometimes that might not be the best because it's not always gonna just go away. So another thing that I found helps is talking to people about it, especially people who've been in this new phase for slightly longer, and asking them if there's anything that helped them if they felt that way, and how do I know for certain that I'm doing a good job and that I fit in here.
So one thing I can think is that you like, have your goal and then do whatever you have to achieve the goal. And I think it's kind of okay to have imposter syndrome in some cases. Like you can just chase your success like, more and more. So I think in that sense, it's okay to have imposter syndrome, but sometimes it's better to praise yourself. So you should have your goal and then feel like you actually achieve it.
I suffer from the perfectionist. I think it fits me very well. Like it describes me very well.
I suffer from the soloist. I would say that it's pretty much similar because from what the survey seems to suggest is that you feel like you need to accomplish everything on your own. And I think that really resonates with me because I feel that I do actually solve like a lot of problems by myself. and like I tend to reject help from others, and like even for like advices, like I wouldn't seek help or like advice from others if until like it's really necessary. So I do feel like I rely on myself quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've done the quiz, and then it says that my version of imposter syndrome is the perfectionist. Yeah. I think it's a very much more extreme version of what I feel. So like the characteristics that I do see here is that I have a tendency to micromanage, or like I don't trust work that's done by others. But I think it's more of the feeling that if I could have it, I'd rather do it myself. It's not necessarily saying that, I want to control what other people are doing. So I think it's accurate to a certain extent, because it's just like the characteristics are all the sort of like extreme. It's towards the extreme of what I feel. Like I don't feel this way actually. Yeah. Yeah.
The quiz says it's perfectionism. No, I think I don't agree. I think perfectionism might be the way my imposter syndrome presents, but it's not really a fear of letting myself down in terms of my own standards not being met. I think I'm scared of not meeting other people's standards.
According to the quiz, I'm a superwoman. I think I definitely related to a lot of the symptoms of categorized by the superwoman. I think, especially the part on when they mentioned in the description, like you'll feel frustrated or angry if things don't go your way, and like how it will affect your close relationships. I think that's very applicable to my life. Like it's very I relate to that a lot. Because on the weekends when I go home and meet my parents, I think I really want to catch up on work for the next week. So because of that, I don't really spend a lot of time with them. And sometimes when I'm in a very stressed like mood, I can get easily frustrated at them, and I would like release and channel my anger towards them. And I think that makes me feel very like I don't want to be that way, and I'm not, and I know that I'm not actually angry at them. I'm angry at myself, and I just chose to release my anger towards them. So yeah, I think that was very like accurate for that description. I think I'll try to have more self-compassion, in the sense that like sometimes when I'm doing work, right, and then I have a lot of like in the process of doing work, I have a lot of like negative self-talk. I would say that, oh, this isn't perfect yet, or this is not up to the standard that I want it to be, and I think I would like beat myself up for these kind of thoughts. So I think moving forward, I hope to tell myself that like sometimes my knowledge is really at its limits. Okay, wait, that sounds very sad. I will just tell myself that I don't know everything, and I can't do everything perfectly, especially on the first go. But that's okay. I will seek to improve, like with every try, with every new with every try that I take, instead of setting like unrealistic expectations that I have to do it super well at the first try.
I kind of plan to actually start seeking advice, like whenever I face problems, because I feel like it's a really important step, like especially since things are actually getting tough, right? So I don't want to keep relying on myself, and it will be a good step to actually be not afraid to ask for help if needed.
I think maybe I'll still cope it in the same way that I feel. So I think like, as I click through the website, right, it says like there are some ways that I can help banish the imposter in me. So, it's saying things like practice celebrating your successes, however small, allowing mistakes to be part of the experience and don't wait for the perfect moment to begin. So I think like it's quite similar to what I mentioned earlier about how like I accept the situation as it is, not thinking too much about perhaps the sort of, because I feel like, this imposter syndrome, there's some form of negativity in it, in that, you don't feel like you're up to standards. But I think at the end of the day, I feel it is still okay to not meet standards. I feel like as long as you're doing your best, you're trying your best, I think that's most important. And I think one of the questions, in the survey that I think really spoke to me is that how what I value most is actually, whether or not in whatever I do, there is a form of like, I'm satisfied with the work I've done, there's a form of satisfaction knowing that, I've tried my best. So I think in terms of like imposter syndrome, I don't really let it get to me now as I think about it. But I think really that it's really just being contented, I felt like of a better word. Just being contented, just accepting things as they are and just face head on with whatever situations or even doubts that you face. I think that's very important.
Maybe I would just be a bit more upfront with the people whose standards I'm scared of falling short of, and tell them that these are the difficulties that I faced while I was doing my work, so maybe that doesn't translate into the same quality of work they could do or they would expect. But I'm still learning, so they should teach me how to get over these failures. And since I know this, I can also just be a little less harsh on myself and just try to communicate with the people that I'm working with to find out what their standards are.
You gave 3 advice there, right? I think the first one doesn't really help, like the meditation and the yoga thing. I think it's very hard to start such a hobby, especially knowing that in that period of time where I'm meditating, I could be doing work that would, and then when I feel the most relief after the work is done, So, like, I feel like one way that I'm currently coping with this is to just do all of my work first, and then I can relax after. So I just try to cram as much as I can, and then when I have like my deadlines are like far away, then I can like properly relax and do what I want to do. And I know that's not a very sustainable way of doing things, but it has worked for me so far. So I think for that first solution, it didn't really I wouldn't be trying it, or I wouldn't be pursuing it. For the second solution, I think one thing I did actually was, instead of writing a to-do list, I wrote the things that I have already done. So instead of seeing the long list of things that I have to do, I write down whatever I have done, and it makes me feel better because I realize, I actually did this much today, or like but it's a hit or miss, because sometimes of days that I didn't really do much, right? It won't help, but like I feel like it takes a bit of pressure off of it, because I don't see the to-do list as often, so I won't be reminded of the things that I have to do. Instead, it's like a form of self-validation that like I see the things that I have done, and I myself acknowledge the work that I have done. So I think that helps so far. I've only started doing it like last week, so yeah, I'm not entirely sure how it's going, but I think it'll work. Yeah. The third solution, I think it's a bit hard to self-validate myself. I think it's hard to unlearn how to not think of what other people seek other people's approval. I think it's hard to totally. I think it's this one, the last one. It's like a long term thing. I think it starts with very small actions that you take every day. I'm not entirely sure how to go about it, but yeah, I think it's important.